Welcome back. After September's 14-year low, U.S. existing home sales rebounded big time in October. In fact, based on my nerdy analysis, this marks the biggest change from September through October, going all the way back until October of 2009 when looking at pre-COVID levels. On top of that, home prices also rose as well compared to the previous month, which again is highly unusual during this time of year. So in today's video, I'm going to give you an update regarding home prices, housing inventory, home sales, and much, much more based on a brand new report that was actually just announced today. If you guys appreciate these timely housing market updates, then please hit the like button. Also, consider subscribing as well. I post frequent housing market updates so you guys can be more informed. With that said, I have a lot to share in today's video. Let's go ahead and dive right in. This, by the way, is from the National Association of Realtors, again, just posted today. We're talking about existing home sales, excluding brand new home construction or brand new home sales. So let's look at sales. They'll have a look at home prices here in a little bit. So this October, the seasonally adjusted and annualized pace was 3,960,000. That's up by 3.4% compared to September, and it's up by 2.9% year over year. They also provided this as well: the Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and the West. So the biggest increase compared to the previous month is actually in the Midwest, up by 6.7%. The West saw the biggest year-over-year gain, up by a whopping 8.5% from October of 2023. Also looking at non-seasonally adjusted numbers, these are actual number of home sales each and every month. We're at around 3.418 million so far this year. That's January through October this year. This means that we could get into a scenario in which we have a little bit more than 4 million home sales by the time we hit the end of this year. So for example, if we had around 300,000 home sales in November and December, we should get at just over 4 million, but it still would be less than 2023's figures, which again was a very low figure looking at home sales overall for the year. So based on my revised forecast, I'm kind of forecasting that we're going to be around 4 million home sales this year. Also, have a look at this. Here's my own analysis of their data, and I only pulled the sales pace and the date from NAR's website. Everything else is my own analysis. So for October, affordability did improve because rates decreased, right? In September, the average 30-year fixed rate, according to Freddie Mac, decreased to a 2-year low in September. And again, we're talking about home sales, home prices for October. That's really what our housing market was like for the most part in the previous month, which of course was September. So buyers getting their offers accepted in September, more often than not, becomes a closed home sale in October. And again, in September, rates decreased to a 2-year low. Having said that, at 3.96 million this October, that was the fastest pace since July this year. Quite the turnaround from the previous month, because back in September, sales decreased to a 14-year low based on the seasonally adjusted annualized pace. Now it's at the highest pace since July. Quite the turnaround. Like I mentioned, because of this unseasonal increase in sales in October, we could end the year at more than 4.0 million sales by the time we hit the end of December. My revised forecast is at 4.02 million, which is slightly less than the 4.09 million we saw back in 2023. So this is where it gets pretty wild here, because sales rose by 3.4% in one single month. Very unusual for October because home sales tend to decrease this time of year. In fact, this is actually the biggest month-over-month change going all the way back until February this year. Additionally, I look back to records going back to the late 1990s. This marks the largest September to October change since the year of October of 2020. Back then, we saw a gain of 3.5%. However, when looking at pre-COVID years, this marks the biggest gain since all the way back until October of 2009. Back then, we saw a giant increase up by 8.5%. So the housing market rebounded big time in October. And also take a look at this, because home sales rose by 2.9% compared to October of 2023. And that, in fact, is the biggest gain for that month since October of 2016 when looking at pre-COVID levels. In addition to that, this is pretty crazy because I've been reporting to you guys for, more than 3 years in which sales have been decreasing compared to the previous 12-month period. So this gain of 2.9% marks the first year-over-year change, or year-over-year increase, I should say, going all the way back until July of 2021. And I was kind of wrapping my head around this. Why did sales increase so much compared to last month? And also, why did they increase compared to last year? And I came up with 3 reasons. Leave me a comment below with your thoughts regarding this. Number 1 year ago, sales dropped to a 14-year low. That was back in October 2023. The pace of home sales decreased to a 14-year low. Haven't been that low since the year of 2010. Therefore, it's not too hard to post a gain based on the fact that 1 year ago, we're at a very low level in sales on national level. So this year, we're up by 2.9%. Compare that to last year this time, we were down by 13% year over year. That's number 1. Here's number 2. Mortgage rates decreased to a 2-year low in September, which of course may have caused sales to rise and of course prices as well. And number 3, there are more houses for sale, giving home buyers more options and more negotiating power as well. Quite a bit different compared to the craziness right after the onset of COVID, where there's this rush to buy houses, people writing crazy offers, very aggressive, and now buyers can kind of take their time and can negotiate a great deal on a house right now, especially in areas that have a lot of houses for sale, such as Florida, Texas, etc. Additionally, this 2.9% increase compared to 12 months ago, again, was the first time that's happened since July of 2021. That last time we saw a gain year over year. Therefore, this is the first annual gain in 39 months. And by the way, NAR defines a home sale as a closed home sale for single-family houses, townhomes, condos, and co-ops. One thing I do want to add here is that even though we're seeing very unusual gains this October, kind of 2 things. It could be short-lived because mortgage rates have increased ever since really late September. So we could see a lull in activity in November and December. On top of that, we're still at relatively low levels as well, because the decrease compared to October of 2019, pre-pandemic years, is still down by 25% compared to levels we're seeing today. All right, let's change gears and talk about inventory numbers, then we'll talk about home prices as well. So inventory, was just under 1.4 million houses for sale. That number tends to be much more inflated compared to other sources such as Realtor.com, Redfin, and also Altos Research, because in my personal opinion, NAR includes some pending home sale, in other words, offers that are already been accepted in their total figures of inventory. So they count that as unsold and not a closed home sale. Therefore, they include that in their inventory numbers. In any case, at 1.4 million, obviously way higher compared to the past several years. This above here is 2021, 22, and 23 by December of those years. And also 1 year ago, we're at just over 1.1 million houses for sale. That's an increase of 19.1% year over year. The month supply is at 4.2 months, a decrease compared to the previous month, but we're up by 16% from 1 year ago when the month supply was only 3.6 months. And of course, I have a lot to share regarding this because I actually uncovered some trends that's not being reported anywhere because this is based on my own analysis. So inventory has basically plateaued over the past 3 months, which is kind of like I've been talking about on the channel for quite some time. Looking at data from Realtor.com and AltosResearch.com, the momentum of inventory, or the growth rate, has basically lost momentum. We have been paid at around 3.6 to around 3.7 million for 3 consecutive months. However, having said that, it should start decreasing in November or December because inventory kind of winds down in the winter months. Also, according to AltosResearch.com, inventory started to decrease in late October. Therefore, we could be at a high point right now in which inventory should decrease for the remainder of the year, which would be seasonal. Also, in regards to the month supply at 4.2 months, this is a slight decrease compared to the 4.3 months we saw in September, but it's also on par with the average in October from 2017 through 2019. The average for those years was 4.1 months, and now we're at 4.2 months. But wait, there's more. I want to share how inventory has changed so far this year, January through October. So far this year, the growth rate is at 36%. So we have 36% more houses for sale. Again, only looking at existing houses, 36% more homes for sale from January through October this year. Compare that to last year at this time, we were up by only 17%. The same time frame, January through October. So inventory has more than doubled compared to last year. However, it's not as great as what happened in 2022. Back then, we saw an increase of 44%. This year, we're up by 36%. Also at 36% right now, this is much higher compared to the average January through October change going all the way back until 2017 through 2019. Back then, the average for those years was a gain of 13.4%. This year, we're up by 36%. So to summarize, inventory is growing twice as fast as last year, but still slower than 2022. Also, as I mentioned today and also in previous videos, the growth rate of inventory has lost momentum over the past several months. It has basically stalled at around a 35 to 36% increase compared to January. However, the year-to-date growth rate so far this year is nearly 3 times more than the average looking at pre-COVID years. And lastly, just for fun, I added this as well. For comparison's sake, the all-time record high for data that goes back to the year 1999 was at 11.9 months supply that was set back in July of 2010. The all-time record low, though, was set back in January of 2022 when the month supply was only at 1.6 months. Let's change gears again and talk about home prices based on the median sale price on a national level and also how that compares to the biggest 4 regions nationwide. These figures, by the way, are not seasonally adjusted though, which is highly unusual here to see an increase in prices. So the national median sale price this October was at $407,200, an increase compared to September and up by 4% year over year. Back then in October last year, we're at just under $392,000. Every market's different though, right? We saw the biggest gains in the Northeast up by 7.6%, the Midwest up by 7.2%, the South barely squeaked out a gain up by 0.9%, and the West increased by 4.4%. But wait, there's more. I want to share my own analysis of their data because look at this. At $407,200, this is the first increase since June this year. Highly unusual because home prices tend to decrease in October, not increase. Having said that, they did increase by 0.1%, which may not sound like a lot, but very, very unusual. So for example, the historical change from September through October, going all the way back until the year of 2010, is an average of a decrease of 0.7%. This year, it increased by 0.1%, a very unseasonal increase in prices this October. Also, this is quite the reversal compared to what happened this time last year. At this time last year, we saw a decrease of 0.3% compared to September. This year, it increased by 0.1%. Lastly, this is obviously a very small increase, up by 0.1%, but I actually looked at their data going all the way back until the 1990s and found out that for the month of October compared to September, this marks the biggest September to October change going all the way back until October of 2005 when excluding post-COVID years. And again, the average going all the way back until 2010 is a decrease of 0.7%, not a gain, up by 0.1. Also have a look at this because on a year-over-year basis, they rose by 4%. That's the biggest gain since June this year. My forecast, which will be by the end of the year here, obviously, is that home prices will rise by about 4% by the time we hit December 31st. That's assuming that prices will decrease in line with what we saw back in November and December. Let's take a look at that. In November, prices decreased by 1%, and in December last year, they decreased by 1.7%. So if that actually happens this year, November, December, we should end the year up by about 4% compared to last year. And obviously, that's quite a bit higher compared to the 0.9% increase in prices that we saw in 2023 compared to 22. Lastly, I want to share this with you guys, looking at the home prices or home price changes over the past several years. So going all the way back until October of 2022, we're up by 7%. 3 years, we're up by 14. The last 4 years, going all the way back until October 2020, up by 30%. But this is actually crazy here, up by 50% when looking at the median sale price compared to October of 2019. And just for fun, looking at the changes in prices from October 07 through 08, we saw a giant decrease down by 10%, whereas this year we're up by 4%. All right, let's get back to NAR's press release just announced today. It says first-time home buyers were responsible for 27% of all home sales in October. These figures, by the way, are based on a weekly survey, by the way. So 27% of all home sales came from a first-time home buyer, up from 26% compared to the previous month, and down from the 28% we saw in October of 2023. Cash sales were around 27% of transactions. That was down from 30% that we saw in September and down from the 29% we saw 1 year ago. Individual investors or second home buyers, who make up of obviously a lot of cash sales, purchased 17% of homes in October, up from 16% in September and the 15% we saw in October 23. Distressed home sales, which are defined by a foreclosure or a short sale, represented only 2% of all home sales in October, unchanged from last month and 1 year ago. That has been paid around 1 to 2% for years now. We're basically seeing a lack of distressed home sales on a national level for quite some time. With that said, if you guys got any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. Also, consider subscribing as well. I post frequent house market updates so you guys can be more informed. And of course, I appreciate you guys so much. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you next video.